Hey friends, it's Wes, and welcome back to the second Statsland devlog. Thanks for everyone who watched and gave support to the first devlog, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get updates for the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and it just also helps the channel out and gives me some encouragement to keep going as well. So with that, let's move on to this week's devlog. So today's topic, after voting in last week's comments, is my 180 degree turn on sports betting. Now, just for the general context, since 1992, sports betting was only legal in Vegas and offshore sports books, and betting was pretty taboo and not very popular because of its perceived effect on the integrity of the game, with past cases like namely Pete Rose betting on baseball and his games and really tainting what people felt like was the integrity of the game. But then in 2018, the Supreme Court struck down the federal ban on sports betting and gave that right to states for them to decide themselves. And slowly over time, more and more states have had votes, and more states have legalized sports betting. But in 2022, California had its vote, and overwhelmingly Californians decided that to keep banning sports betting by a very surprising and historical 82 to 18%. And I was one of the 18% that actually voted yes for sports betting. And the reason why is I think of sports betting as more of a content, from a content perspective. Like, it's interesting to see who's favored, who's not, the reasons why, if the MVP odds change. That also reflects public sentiment. So I'm really interested in like the numbers of it and seeing how it affects. It's a representative of telling the story of how the season's going. And now the current state is, I would say, pretty bleak. The 5 reasons I have that why I am totally 100% against sports betting now, and having seen it played out over a few years, is the first being more addictive, live, repeatable bets, namely player prop parlays. And I'll let this Washington Post short explain it.
But what if you looked at the weekend's games and saw 5 bets you thought you could win? You could combine them into a parlay, a type of wager that offers a big potential payout but is much more difficult. Because now you have to get all 5 of those bets correct to win. If you get even one wrong, you lose. It's unlikely for you to win a parlay bet, and sportsbooks have a major edge. In states that publish this data, parlays account for about 1/3 of the total amount wagered on sports, but sportsbooks generate roughly 2/3 of their revenue from these bets.
They're very addictive as well because you can place them live. They're all very small things, so you don't have to wait for the game to end. If you lose right away, you can just make a new one. And if you get really close, like you got 4 out of 5 of your parlay parts of your parlay correct, you'll feel like you're close. And it's also become more normalized, as in point number 2, that the advertising is inescapable. There are multiple studies out there. This one I'm showing, a particular one, that shows that sports betting is everywhere. Every X seconds, you'll hear about it, see it on the court, see it on a scroll, on a ticker down below. And it's really been normalized with celebrity advertising and just social pressure, especially for young men. And this has, I think, this wide acceptance has also actually led to the integrity of the game being compromised. I was for sports betting being legalized because it would help bring illegal operations to light and bring more regulation and be able to catch things like what happened with Jonte Porter or Emmanuel Clase, where weird bets were being placed, and we could find that players were indeed tanking their certain plays or games to win bets. This is just happening more and more, and it's something that I think is more akin to opening a Pandora's box of finding these cheaters versus it being in the dark and being not a very lucrative thing to even try in the first place. Whereas now it's you can make decent money doing that on the side. And that leads now to prediction markets, which is a very recent thing. Just in the past few maybe months, hearing of Kalshi and Poly Market are the 2 big ones. Where they are pretty much exempt from sports betting regulation because they are quote-unquote prediction markets, and that means they can go about with just I guess really unregulated is the right word. The different types of bets you can make on Kalshi are like predictions like, oh, who will win the election? That was a big one last year in 2024. Or will Jesus come back? That's one I've seen on social media as well. But then you can also place non-traditional sports bets, like which team will Giannis be on next year. And now Giannis has a stake in this company, and he can see what's happening and where people think he's going. And there is nothing stopping him or someone he knows, more like there is technically rules preventing him, but someone he knows from placing a big bet on what they think Giannis will do when they obviously have insider information. And that's something we've seen in other prediction market bets, like one I can also think of is when Venezuela got taken over and Maduro got deposed. There were huge bets coming in 24 hours before that happened, predicting that it would come to pass. And so it's a very rigged, popular way to pretty much also include sports betting as well. That's, I think, also very dangerous for people. And finally, summing it all up, all this has really led to just addiction and poor spending and money habits, and not people getting richer or having more fun, but people having addictions, mental health crises, and really just the companies themselves getting rich on these addictive, super accessible from your phone. You can use data and ads to target, give you free money to bet again. And really that cycle of a casino is right on your phone now. You don't have to travel anywhere, and is always ready for you. They're always ready to take your money and lose your money on betting. I really am sad to see the state of, leagues having investment stakes in sponsorships with sports betting companies, and how, we're already seeing sports being compromised and also people's lives as well. And so for this week's Statsland update, I worked all on Athlete Unknown, the first game in the Statsland attraction universe. And so I've changed the general play structure, where before you could guess as many times as you want and your score would just go down a little bit every time. But now there is a 5 guess maximum before your round is considered lost, just to add just a little bit of stakes, and not to make it as more a willy-nilly guessing game, but actually a more strategical, trivia sort of experience. And adding to the video game experience of it, I am adding a full-length story. Previously, in like my previous iteration of the beta I released to friends and family, there was just a intro, kind of set the scene, pretty much intro, one page to like, hey, this is where you are, you're a detective in Statsland. But this time, I have developed a full story where you are a private investigator in Statsland, and the police commissioner comes to your office with a case he can't solve. So that's the hook, and now I'm going to implement daily story progression to see how the story turns out, and you get bonus stories unlocked through certain achievements, like winning a certain number of rounds or playing a certain number of days. And so I've also worked on the development of this story, of the progression, and all the things that come with it for the first time making a story like this. It's been an interesting challenge, and writing is not one of my strong suits, so it's been a challenge. And for those interested in the computer science programming on the back end, I was working on all the changes to support having a trigger the story when you accomplish the right task, how it looks on screen, what happens if they're multiple accomplished at the same time. And so this is all in the back end of my Golang API. And just as a note, you will see me using Claude Code, which is a AI coding agent. At some point down the line, that will be one of the topics that we'll discuss about using AI in coding, and my opinions on it, I'm sure. But I do use it time to time just to help with brainstorming, or just to do things that I really want it to, basically like an assistant. But that will be maybe talk about more another time. And really, it's so heavy because I did do a lot of technical debt cleanup with changing the names of certain endpoints and objects and models, and creating a service layer that is so I can abstract all the logic out from the HTTP handling to the business logic handling, so I can add unit tests. Previously, there were no unit tests out of laziness and my personal, laziness of not just wanting to write a unit test and just wanting to test everything manually. But I am now undergoing the task of trying to actually write unit tests to have a better code base. So that's the end of my Statsland Devlog number 2. Thanks for tuning in. Again, subscribe if you're not already to get the next notification, and check in the comments about which topic you'd like me to talk about next week. Thanks, everyone. Take care.